Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the rising sign of Scorpio, also known as the ascendant. And this is going to be a lot of fun for me because I think that Scorpio itself is a sign of extremes, and there is a lot going on there beneath the surface. And the rising sign could be characterized as the surface. So basically, when we're talking about the rising sign, we're talking about how you project your energy in the world at large. Now, when people get to know you, you may let down your guard and open up more, and whatever your sun sign is, and even the moon sign, that kind of can come through a lot more. But that facade is going to be more of the rising sign. But I wasn't happy with that definition because just bringing it back to myself, I was thinking, but I don't put up a facade. Or at least I never have felt like I act one way in one situation and another in another. But we all do to some extent, not that we're being fake, but that we express ourselves depending upon the environment in which we are in. And I know personally, even though I'm a sun in Sagittarius, and that's a fire sign, and that's supposed to be very gregarious and out there in the world, I am a little bit reserved, and I'm definitely not like how I'm talking now. Now, I'm alone. I'm just talking to myself here, and I'm acting very animated. But if you were to meet me in public in a group situation, I would probably be very quiet. Not 100% of the time, and it has nothing to do with being shy. It's just that I'm more subdued. I have my sun in the 8th house, which is Scorpio's house. Okay, so I'm kind of like, I have a sub-influence of sun in Scorpio. And in addition to that, I have Taurus rising. So the rising sign does influence how you act in a public setting or when you don't know people that well. And so for people who have Scorpio rising, because the rising sign determines what your ruler is, and we look at what the rising sign's ruler is, your ruler is Pluto. Now, Scorpio is also ruled by Mars, and so I guess you could also put Mars in that category as your co-ruler. But in terms of a lot of the attributes, I would say, of Scorpio rising, it would really resonate with Pluto. And how this plays out for a Scorpio rising person is, I think, first and foremost, because the rising sign tends to describe the physical attributes, you may have very piercing eyes. And that is also, like the eagle, I think, is associated with Scorpio. So the eagle eyes, they're just like fierce. Have you ever seen a bald eagle? It just like, it's kind of funny because that's associated with the United States, is the bald eagle. And if you've ever seen one, the face of one, the eyes are just like really intense. And that is how Scorpio is. And in the the intangible version of that is that you may actually be quite psychic. Anybody who has a rising sign that's water will naturally be intuitive. And for Scorpio, this is also, I would say, not just the typical woo type of psychic energy, but also perception, being more perceptive than the average person, picking up on small details when other people are talking, ferreting those details away for, for future reference, if you need to bring them out for some reason, but really just being able, you're like the natural psychologist in these settings where you're meeting people and getting to know them and really kind of being able to see right through them, and being able to spot phonies a mile away. And other people can actually get quite uncomfortable around people who have Scorpio rising, because they sense that intensity. They sense that you're looking right through them and that you're penetrating their psyche. Okay. And so they may find your presence very compelling, but very disturbing at the same time, or, uncomfortable for them. And the other thing too about this is that it's also the case if you have Pluto in the first house. That's almost like having, especially if it's near the ascendant, but just having it in the first house can give that same kind of scorpionic appearance and demeanor. And by the way, in terms of appearance, I would say if you, like, let's say you're a woman, well, it could be a man too, but there's like this swarthy quality, kind of a dark complexion. Even if you're a blonde, you may be compelled to dye your hair black and be kind of goth, or favor that. Fishnet stockings, wearing black in general, man or woman. Maybe you just love that color, or very dramatic dark colors. Like, I think another great color for Scorpio is like maroon, kind of the color of blood because of that Martian influence, but a dark shade of it. Like, instead of just bright, fire engine red, it could be more like brick red or maroon. And just any kind of clothing that is more like cloaks, there's kind of mysterious. I don't think that make you feel like you're kind of like Dracula or something. So like a poncho type of a thing, or a cape, But in any case, regardless of how you look. One thing I wanted to say along those lines is if you are, a man might do this in certain ways, but I could really see a woman is being a femme fatale, the male version of whatever that is, It's not just being sexy, but kind of that very, the femme fatale is always the seductress, but there's a very gothic quality about it. I don't know how to really define it better than that. But you know what? It's about power at the end of the day. And so this can be where Scorpios kind of rile other people up, because they may sense in any type of setting that you find yourself in, that you create the sense of antagonism because you are fiercely competitive. So a Scorpio rising person walks into a workplace, maybe you're a new employee, and with those eagle eyes, and you already can kind of sense the office politics, and you know how to work it. You know how to work that room. You know what buttons to push and who's doing what with whom. And, because you're a water sign, you can manipulate with the best of them if that's what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get in somebody's head, if you're trying to, work your way up, you're going to be there. You're going to do that. And that can incite a sense of envy or, like jealousy if somebody senses that you're trying to get in good with the boss. And the boss may look at you as the rightful heir to any kind of position of authority because they sense in you that kind of cutthroat attitude where you can dominate the scene. And this is regardless of sun sign. You could be a sun in Gemini and have this very intense rising sign and really know how to present yourself in a manner, especially, at the beginning, where you are off and running with a certain company, certain workplace situation, and other people can feel this sense of resentment if it's taken too far. Because again, when your ruler is Pluto, there's a kind of a ruthless quality at times, and that is kind of the shadow aspect. The powerful, what we'd call the more positive traits or constructive traits are just a sense of power and will, that is very apparent, where a person in authority may look at you and see a lot of strength, see a sense of purpose, and know that you will not waver. You're going to be very consistent, and they may really resonate with you versus somebody else who's wishy-washy and has a tendency to cave and maybe doesn't project the same kind of confidence, because this is a type of confidence that is like bordering on, steel nerves or whatever they call that. But the thing is being able to bend, because Scorpio is a fixed sign, and that can make you kind of rigid. And this is, even with the ascendant, there can be this insistence on maintaining this facade and not ever allowing anyone to get close to you. Another thing that brings me to that point of not trusting others. I was basing some of this idea of the rising sign on your childhood, and because I had read that the rising sign is most influential during the first 30 years of life, and that dovetails with the first Saturn return. And I always feel like the person loses the influence of the family of origin after this time to a large degree. Not necessarily 100% though, but enough to kind of move in their own direction and do their own thing. And as a result, that can be a time when your sun sign becomes more who you are and all of that. But with Scorpio rising, if you're talking about what kind of influences came from childhood, there may have been loss, like death, especially death with Scorpio, but also with other water signs as well. And death can lead to abandonment issues, and also being overly controlling and needing being very rigid about one's schedule, because you're trying to control as many variables as possible in life. And so that overly regimented person could be reacting to this unexpected event of like something like death or a parent abandoning the family, or any kind of abuse. The 8th house that Scorpio rules deals specifically with sex, in addition to death and money, other people's money. So you might see sexual issues coming up in the form of abuse, or just, we're talking about trying to overpower somebody. Also money, where somebody used money as a way to control. And that can even be in childhood that parents do that. So you may grow up thinking, when I grow up, I'm going to have these things myself, because I don't want to be at somebody else's mercy. So you can be very, even obsessed about success, because you want the power that goes along with it. But as I said, there can be this lack of trust due to violation of trust, usually by an adult when you were young, or abandonment through the form of either a parent leaving the family or death. Death is a form of abandonment, even though it wasn't meant that way. Now, that can also lead the Scorpio rising person to be rather secretive. So when you first walk into a room or meet somebody, you may appear to be rather secretive. And because I consider myself more perceptive than the average person, but I don't bill myself as psychic or anything like that. But if I met you, I might say, I feel like that person has something that they're hiding. And my reaction to that might be kind of like, I don't know about this person because I don't know if I can really trust them because I don't feel like they're fully revealing themselves. And I might say, why are they not revealing themselves? What do they have to hide? And you might say a lot. You might say, I have to do this because otherwise I'll be too vulnerable and I won't be protected. Again, this may be a coping mechanism that traces back to your childhood. And as you get older, you may start to let go of that more and more. And actually, I think that it will work to your advantage to try to let go of that because even if somebody doesn't, think it doesn't rile somebody's suspicions that you're like this, they still won't get to know you, and that may stymie a relationship from getting off the ground. If another person feels that you're kind of withholding, even if they don't sense it overtly, if you are withholding, you're remaining a mystery to another person, and then you can't get known and you can't be accepted for who you really are. So again, if you have a puppy dog sun sign like Sagittarius or, a playful like Leo, and you have Scorpio rising, you may be more fierce. People may perceive you as more kind of mysterious and fierce. And you may like that, depending on the Scorpio rising individual. Okay, well, I could say a whole bunch about you guys, but I'm going to leave that there. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this type of analysis, I do have natal chart interpretations where I go into some of these aspects of your natal chart and also look at the highlights in certain areas for the next 12 months. Check me out at rainandmoonastrology.com. The link is below. Take care. Bye.